Hi, my name is Susan Dumler, and I'd like to welcome you to my presentation, The Power of Video and Instructional Technology, Teaching Career and Technical Education in the Online Environment. I'm really happy that you've chosen to tune in and watch this presentation. The objective that I have is that it will discover various methods of instructional technology to assist in teaching career and technical education in the online environment. When we are teaching a hands-on area in online, it is not typically ideal. And so in the past year, when COVID-19 happened and all of us were forced to move into the online environment, we may have had experience or we may have not had a lot of experience, and then we had to get creative on how we were going to move all of the things that we did that were so hands-on, so in-depth, and really move those into the online environment while at the same time trying to teach the students the same concepts. So creativity was a lot of that. So in this presentation, I'm going to focus a lot on instructional technology techniques that you can use and hopefully successfully teach your career and technical education. So at the end of this presentation is my hopes that viewers will be able to identify new types of instructional technology to engage learners, to implement applications for collaboration in the classroom, to examine current screencast and instructional video techniques, and adapt current practices to the digital environment. So we all know what career and technical education is, but just so that is at the forefront of our mind as we go through some of the things that I'm going to show you today, I'd like to just read this definition for you. Career and technical education is the practice of teaching skills-based careers to students in middle school, high school, and post-secondary institutions. And so I think that's really important to keep that in mind, that as we're getting creative and we're looking at how to be successful and duplicate our on-campus classes into that online environment, to remember that we're teaching skills-based classes, and so we thrive and we depend on that hands-on. And so when we're looking to mimic that in the online environment, how can we be the most successful in doing? CTE programs are actually supported by federal legislation, and so our goal when we teach our students is to really address that skills gap. We're teaching the students those hands-on skills that can help them succeed after their education. And so there are 30 million jobs in the United States right now that do not require a bachelor's degree, and they pay median earnings of $55,000 or more per year. And so we're teaching our students whether they continue their education after high school into post-secondary or continue or go into the workforce right after high school, they can get a good job learning our skills. And so it's so important to educate our students in CTE and also educate those individuals that do not know about CTE. And so our classes are really here at Fort Hays. They may be pre-engineering, and so they're going to take some of our courses. So as I said before, our classes really focus on skills, and so as we practice, the hands-on experience and application tests make up the bulk of what we do. And so again, trying to duplicate that in the online environment. And so our programs benefit students in so many different ways. I've mentioned several already, but let's look at a few more before we really get into the instructional technology piece. And so one is that our classes are not just job training. They're not job training for high school students, but they're going to be able to explore a wide variety of career fields that assist them in finding what they're most passionate about, what they want to pursue after that time. And so taking with us. And the jobs in CTE will always be in high demand. So students that have certifications might be able to start work immediately after high school or right out of college. So just to look again what all the areas of the Kansas career clusters are. I know all of you probably know these, but just I like to show this just so that everyone who teach career and technical education. As we get into different types of instructional technology and different methods that you can adopt in your teaching, let's look at our duties. What are our duties? First, we all know we create lesson plans and assignments. We're going to instruct students on how to develop skills. We're going to show how to apply that classroom knowledge through the hands-on activities that we do in our classes. We're going to demonstrate and supervise the safe and proper use of tools and equipment. So all of us that teach in these areas, there's some type of equipment that we're teaching students and we're training students and we're maintaining that equipment. And then we're monitoring students' progress. We're assigning tasks and we're grading assignments. And last, we're discussing students' progress with parents, students, and counselors. And we're developing and enforcing classroom rules and safety procedures. Safety procedures as we work with different types of equipment, and training our students with those hands-on activities is a very important part of what we do in one of our greatest duties. Okay, so now that we know our duties, we have all of that in the forefront, let's look at the challenges that teaching career and technical education possess. And so for many CTE programs, at least some face-to-face instruction is ideal. So ideal situation, we actually have the students physically in the classroom, and sometimes that's even necessary for knowledge or skill development. They need that hands-on practice to actually achieve the knowledge of achieve really learning that skill. They actually need to have that hands-on experience. And so when teachers and students are cut off from the classroom tools that they need to develop that skill, or the professional grade equipment they've relied upon, then it makes it really challenging to develop those skills. And so we have to get very creative in order to do this, to still be able to offer courses and opportunities for our students. And so when that loss of the in-person close-up demonstrations of proper technique happened, and we forced to move online, we had to take that challenge and figure out a way to overcome that. And also another challenge is to gauge students' mastery in real time. And so when we have the students face-to-face and we have them in our labs, we're able to identify when they reach that point of mastery, when they've mastered that skill that they need to learn, whether it be in the CAD classroom or in the plastics lab or in the STEM lab or in the woods lab. We can see when they reach mastery. And so when that opportunity and that environment is taken away, we have to find a new way to gauge that student's mastery, and it may not be in the real time. All right, so let's look at the advantages that we have and the online does provide, okay? Because online is not all negative, okay? We can pull some advantages from it. So in 2020, we have all learned how to adapt and be creative in our specific areas and disciplines. And so it forced us to rethink how courses will be delivered in the future. And so it helped us to realize that yes, this is 2020 and COVID-19 happened, but it also forced us to rethink, well, how can we deliver this course in the future? Could this course be delivered another way? Can we utilize technology to revamp this course and restructure it so that it can be offered in the online environment, maybe on a routine basis? And so in previous years and situations where we weren't forced into that online environment, I think 2020 provided the opportunities for us to really rethink how things had always been done, and come up with new and different and creative ways for how we would do things in the future. And so teaching CTE in the virtual environment does offer long-term benefits, and some of those are flexibility. having those students right there in real time in the classroom is obviously the best case scenario. But the opportunity for us to teach those courses in the online environment provides flexibility for the students. That means maybe more students could take our courses that maybe couldn't come to that face-to-face time. So it offers flexibility, and also to stay engaged in their learning and extend what the students learn in the classroom with interactive learning opportunities that they can participate in at home. And so I have several examples that I'm going to show you and discuss throughout this presentation. And so really in the online environment, it helps the students develop 21st century skills that they need for workplace success. And it also offers a cost-effective option. Teaching these in the online environment where we may not be paying as much to maintain the labs, we may not be paying as much for supplies. And so it can also be a very cost-effective option, and maybe for the student as well. So my question and where we're going to go to now is, how do we teach career and technical education remotely, or in the online environment, or in the virtual classroom? So we're going to look at some ways to do that. And these words that you see here up on the screen are the first things that come to my mind. First is resourcefulness. This has proven us to become resourceful, to share. We're going to use each other and share ideas, share opportunities, share ideas. We're going to do more of that sharing of, okay, what are you doing in this class? Would that help me in this class? We're doing more sharing, and I think we're all in our designated areas are seeing more of that happening. Obviously, we need teachers. We are all dedicated and passionate about what we do. And so that ability to problem solve has really shown itself in this past year. Collaboration, so that goes along with share, but collaboration has been huge. We have to collaborate with each other to come up with ways to do this. And then we're really finding that our creativity has grown. I think all of us can probably say that. And obviously we've all adapted. We may have been forced to adapt, but we all have adapted to the situation and tried to make the best of it, using these words and expand. I always hear the term that, you have to get out of your comfort zone. And when you do get out of that comfort zone, you realize that, hey, I can do this. It's okay. Hey, this is another way of doing things. I always tell my students that one of my theories and the things I always say is there's always more than one way to do something. And so I think having to move our CTE courses into the online environment has really proven that that is a true statement. And so again, we have the passion and that has allowed us to use all of these things and do the very best that we can for our students, thinking outside the box and coming up with solutions to this year. All right, so now as we get into instructional technology, let's define instructional technology. This is my area of specialty. I teach Introduction to Instructional Technology for Teacher Education in the Applied Technology Department at Fort Hays State University. My master's degree is in Instructional Technology. I think that using technology to teach students and in educational experiences is absolutely fascinating. It's something that can happen in so many different ways and is really powerful in the learning experience. And so again, the theory and practice of using technology for education, we're going to use technology to design, to develop, use, management, and evaluation. And so this is really just a fun area. So hopefully you take some things away today that you can utilize. So there's one main purpose in all of instructional technology, and that main purpose is to create engaging and effective learning experiences. We want the learning experiences of our students to be effective, and then we want to engage our students. No student wants to listen to a PowerPoint for 45 minutes. There's no student that wants to do that. Students want to be engaged in the experience, and so if we can use different types of technology in our instruction to find different ways to engage those students, in the end it makes that learning experience more effective. So some benefits are of instructional technology. We have better access to information. We have more access to information than we ever have before. And so when we learn how to do that effectively and efficiently, we can open up multiple doors to information. And it also provides more opportunities for collaboration. So that's one of the areas that I'm going to go through today is different ways that we can collaborate and different ways that students can collaborate. And probably most importantly is instructional technology allows us to meet the needs of diverse learners. So all of our learners have different needs, and so it really allows us to meet diverse learners' needs. So there's 3 key areas that I'm going to start with. The 3 key areas of instructional technology that I want to focus on first is collaborative learning. Collaborative learning is where you have students working together, oftentimes to learn and to solve a problem. And so if we get our students working together, that's going to enhance and heighten the learning experience for them. They can learn so much from us, but they can learn even more maybe sometimes from each other and learning how to collaborate and work together. The second is we're going to look at virtual classrooms and online learning. Obviously, that's a big component of what we have all transitioned to. So we're going to look at some key area. Then we're going to look at real-time feedback, how we can provide real-time feedback to our students, either in the classroom or in that online environment. Students need that feedback from us. They need to know if what they're doing is correct. They need to know when they're succeeding and they're doing well. And so that feedback, if we can have it as close to real time as possible, is proven to be the best form of feedback for the student. So the first thing that we're going to focus on, that first key area, is collaborative learning. And the first tool that I'm going to introduce is called Padlet. We can use Padlet for brainstorming. We can use it for online student portfolios. So for example, we can create a board for each student, and then that student that's where they can post their assignments, they can post articles, they can post projects, and then as a teacher, we can comment on those individual students. And so rather than having a thread in the discussion board and leaving comment in that little feedback box, we can actually use their individual board, and we can make comments and give feedback on everything that they post. And so Padlet's kind of a unique and fun way that's just different. It's something else that is very simple to use. It's very simple to create. And it's another way that we can provide that feedback and help the students to collaborate. Another way that we can use Padlet is by using it as an exit ticket. And so we can, on our Padlet, we can ask the students, what did you learn today? So we could do this after, if we're in the virtual environment, we could do it after an online lecture. Maybe we could post that as a question for midweek. Okay, what did you learn? What didn't you understand? What questions do you still have about this topic? And so I'm going to play this video for you. So as you can see, Padlet is a great way that a great tool that we can use for all of those different things that we talked about. And so, if you're looking for another option than just your typical discussion board or your typical whatever, however you post on your LMS, this is a great option. It's free to use, it's safe, it's secure, and so this is again a great option, and it can be used for a variety of different age groups. And so this is a great option for you. And then some of the things that I've used it for is I've used it for essay topics. And so, like I said, rather than just the students posting it on a discussion board, I always think that's hard to read. You can have the students post their topic on your Padlet board. Flipgrid is the next tool that I'm going to introduce you to. It's a free discussion board platform. So again, we can collaborate, have the students collaborate, but Flipgrid really focuses on the video. So it's a way that we can see and hear students. So there's really 3 steps to it. One, we're going to create a topic. The topic is what drives the discussion. And then we're going to set the access, who can access it, and we're going to share that link. And then the learners are going to respond. And by utilizing Flipgrids, as soon as that comment's posted, then students are going to record a video and share back. And so, for example, if you have students do reflections for a topic that you have, a discussion topic, and you want to hear them and you want them to interact with each other, Flipgrid's a great option for that. Gets out of the norm of maybe the discussion board. And so again, very, very easy to create, easy to operate, 3 simple steps, and we have the ability to see and hear the students, which we all know in the virtual environment. We don't have the same connection that we do in that face-to-face environment. So if we can have a way where the students can see and hear each other, and anytime that we can do that, it really gives them a voice and adds a more personal level to the course. And so Flipgrid is another option that you can incorporate. The next is not a specific application, but it's called the jigsaw technique. And so this is a way to get students to collaborate. So for example, I'm just going to read you the definition. The jigsaw technique builds on one of the most effective ways to process and retain information. So the 2 students are actually going to teach each other. And so how the jigsaw technique works is we would ask each student to learn a piece of the material. So we would assign students, maybe put students in a group, and then we would give each student a piece of that material. Then they would research on that specific piece of material, and then they would teach it to their group. After that happens, then the group would work together to synthesize the information and to create a presentation about what they learned. And so you have students not only teaching each other, but then when they come together and put the pieces together and create their presentation, then they can perhaps teach the class. And so using the jigsaw technique is a great way for students to have to, one, do the kind of research on their own and be creative, and then they have to work together to teach each other what their pieces of information were, and then again come together, put more pieces together to create that presentation. So the jigsaw technique, and maybe that's something that you're doing, you just didn't know what it was called. So the jigsaw technique is another great way that we can get the students to collaborate with each other. Another way that we can have students collaborate is by using Google Groups. So if you're a Google school or if you have an account, you can create a Google group. This allows you to create and participate in online forums and email-based groups, which provide a rich experience for communication and conversations. And so we can have students, we can invite them by email so it's secure, and then they can continue to have conversations. And so creating groups is pretty easy, and then you would simply send them an invite to their email, and they would be added to that group, and then you could add content and have your groups collaborate. And the next one is Zoom, as we all know now very well what Zoom is. This is a great option for our virtual classroom and online learning. So probably all of us have done multiple Zooms at this point, but Zoom provides a lot of options. And so if you've just done your typical Zoom experience, I'm going to log on, I'm going to start my meeting, I see my students, maybe their screens are shut off black. And so one, requiring them to keep their cameras on is one option, but using some of the additional features of Zoom. So in order to get those students to collaborate during a Zoom class time, if you're having a synchronous class, utilizing the breakout room feature. If you haven't done this, I encourage you to do this. You have a couple options with the breakout room feature. You can actually preset the breakout rooms, so how many breakout rooms you want to have, and if you want to actually manually assign students to the different breakout rooms, or if you want to have Zoom automatically assign the students to the breakout room. So maybe it'd be fun to mix it up and do it a couple different ways, but you can actually set the breakout room options as you are setting up the meeting. You can also just start the breakout rooms even if you haven't done it ahead of time. So there's a lot of different options. One of the great ways to keep students ensure that they collaborate during that breakout room and keep them productive and hold them accountable is by making shared Google documents. And so you could create a shared Google document for each one of those breakout rooms, and then the students would collect their thoughts or their information or whatever you were having them work on in those breakout rooms. They could take notes of their discussion, and then they could present that to the class, or you would have access to be able to see that. And so that's a great way to keep students on task during the breakout room option. If you haven't used the breakout room feature, you do have the option as the instructor to pop in on the different breakout rooms. And so just like you would in the classroom, think about if you have students in the classroom in groups, you would often be floating around checking on them, facilitating the discussion as needed. And so you can do the same thing in the Zoom breakout rooms. And so oftentimes I would pop in on my breakout rooms, and maybe things would get quiet for a minute, and I'm like, okay, what are you guys talking about? And so I find that just like the students work in groups in the class, you can hear that great discussion. And so but using the Google Docs is another way to keep them on task and maybe keep them productive. But also Zoom, you can use there's a polling feature on Zoom. This is another option for, again, I guess we could use that for real-time feedback too. A way to get them collaborating and responding is by using the reactions. So, you see the waves or the thumbs up, they can use the reactions, so you could utilize that in your virtual classroom. Utilize the chat, so you could ask a question, you could have the students type in their responses. Some people take attendance that way for the Zoom. But that's another great way to just get them involved in your virtual classroom and do something a little bit different than your just normal Zoom session where the students are on the other side of the screen and maybe you don't even see them back. So that's another way. A great option if you have a student that does not have good internet access, or if they don't have maybe not a good solid internet connection, you can actually have them call into the Zoom session. So just make sure that you're clicking that by telephone option when you're setting up your meeting, and that's a great option for students, so they're just not left out if they don't have a reliable internet. So trying that is doing that is another option for students. Okay, so some of the things that we want to keep in mind with our virtual classrooms and online learning, one idea is to structure your online lessons. And so this is a way that if you find yourself in your online lessons not having a good structure, you can actually make time blocks of the lesson. And so let's say my class goes from 9 to 9:30. Then I could say from 9 to 9:05, I'm going to do introductions. Okay, what are my essential elements for the introductions or roll call? Okay, well, I would need my class roster. Do I have a key visual for that? I may or may not. And then let's say my next time block is from 9:05 to 9:15. Okay, so then what would my essential element for that time block be? What am I doing at that point in the lesson? And then do I have a visual? Do I have a graphic or a video that I need to show for that? And so that's a way that you can help to structure your online lessons and breaking it down into the time blocks for the lesson. What are your essential elements that you need in order to teach at that part of the lesson? And then is there a visual that you need to provide? And so you can make just a Google Sheet, a Google Doc, breaking it out into a graph, and this can help you stay better organized and better structure your online lessons. And then another way that we can operate our virtual classrooms is doing check-ins with the students. We always want to try to gauge our student learning to see how their other option that I have seen done is on a Google Doc and making it in columns. And so you have the student put maybe their feelings about the lesson, and then on the other side, maybe the instructor can make a comment or ask questions. And so those are some simple ways by using those two tools that you're going to make it an every 2-week check-in. You know what works best for you, but those are some great options and ideas for those students to not get lost. When you're in a strictly online environment and you don't have that face-to-face interaction with the student, you're not able to see how that's in the class, in the lecture. For example, if you're in a Zoom class, you may not see if they're not grasping the material, or if you're in asynchronous where they're watching a recording, you can't get that kind of feedback. And so doing check-ins is another great way to run your online class and again make it a better experience for the students. All right, the next one we're going to go to and the last one is the real-time feedback. And so how we can get real-time feedback from the students maybe in a lecture or within a certain specific day, you know, a quick turnaround time for their feedback. And so these are some different ways that I have utilized before to get feedback from my students. The first is Socrative. And so if you haven't used Socrative yet, it's very easy to use. A lot of the times I will just put up a question and ask them to define, or what questions do you have? And so Socrative.com is a great tool. It's very easy to use. And Flipgrid, we talked about that before. That's another option where they can get feedback, so you can have that chat option open in the class. Padlet is another option for real-time feedback, so it can be utilized for that as well. And then using the Zoom chat and reactions to get that quick real-time feedback. So those are some options for real-time feedback. So now we're going to shift into video instruction. We're going to look at methods of creating our videos and then also the delivery of videos. And so as we look at video instruction, our whole and goal of instruction via video is student engagement. Okay, so some of the things that might help and we have to think about are they mean active watching. So rather than your students just sitting on the other side of the screen watching your lecture or watching the lesson, you can have them completing a worksheet that maybe you send them. And so as you are going through the lesson, maybe they have something to do. So it's that active watching. Kind of like when you think about active listening, when somebody's speaking to you, you're doing those active listening responses, shaking your head, saying, mm-hmm. And so active watching is very similar to that, but the students are active, they're doing something related to the lesson, and so it helps them to stay engaged during the lesson. The second is Zoom burnout. So we really have to think about how often we're all Zooming. If the students are Zooming every single one of their classes, they're going to get burnt out. And so maybe just incorporating some of these other options that I've already mentioned in place of a Zoom, you know, having them provide the videos, having them utilize that jigsaw technique, and them providing the lesson, and the other students watching all of the other classmates' recordings. You know, that's an option, but Zoom burnout is real. I think we've all felt it as instructors and educators, and so keeping in mind that our students are experiencing that as well. Another option on our video is subtitles. So in YouTube, we can have the students turn those captions on, and one that can be helpful for students that are more visual learners. So if really listening to the lesson is difficult for those students, by turning those captions on and allowing the students to read that as you're going through your video or lesson, that can help students a great deal. And we have to think about, again, those the diverse needs of our different learners. All of our learners are going to have different needs. And so we always have to keep that in mind of what might help all of our learners. And so just turning the captions on YouTube is a great option for that. And then perspective. We need to keep the perspective of what the students are seeing on the screen, maybe our perspective of where we're videoing from. And so if you're doing a writing demonstration, or perhaps putting a part together or drawing something, we can use the iPhone tabletop stands, and put our iPhone like this and hit record. And we can actually change the perspective from where we're videoing. So get creative, especially in career and technical education. We have so many diverse things that we teach. We're able to get creative with our video perspective. And so even if you need to get a student worker or another coworker to help you change that perspective, that's a great option and a way to mix it up for the students. And then keep in mind your background. And so we all see those Zoom do's and don'ts now. And so keep in mind with your background, you don't want to be backlit. And so notifications that pop up on your computer, that may be dinging of phones in the background, your telephone ringing. I only say that because I'm in my office and I don't have a telephone anywhere else other than my cell phone. But keeping those digital distractions to a minimum, and also real life distractions. And so we're in the age where a lot of educators are working from home, or you may be recording from home. And so keeping in mind those real life distractions, such as, kids running in the background, pets. We need to really try to minimize those real life distractions. And so keeping your background as professional as possible. And then camera placement. We don't want the camera down, so we're looking down at the camera. So even here, I've propped my laptop up so that I'm able to more look up or straight at my camera. And I've seen where some people will place something on top of their camera, of their webcam, so that they can focus on that. It's common for us to either look at our picture in the bottom corner, and obviously if I'm doing that, I'm not looking up at you. And so keep in mind your camera placement and where you're placing your phone or your laptop or your computer webcam, wherever that might be. You need to place that so you're looking up and your angle is correct. And then screencasting tips, which I'm going to go through with you. So we have videos, one where we're capturing video of our lecture, but then we also have times when we're making screencasts for the students. And so we're going to go through some of those tips as well. And so a screencast is defined as a screen capture of the actions on a user's computer screen, typically with accompanying audio. And so just like I'm doing now, I'm recording my recording my lecture, and then I'm also narrating it. And so that's what we call a screen. Screencast-O-Matic is one of the more popular tools that you can utilize. It is you can have a free trial, but then it does cost a little bit. And so maybe that's something that you can actually get your school to pay for. But it's very easy to use. You can do video, you can do images, you can keep things in folders so you can have them organized. But it is a really great tool to utilize for screen capture. It's very high quality, so it's a great option. So I'm going to go through about 2 slides worth of creating high quality screencasts. You may think that that's a lot, but really it's important to have a plan when you go to develop a screencast. It's going to make it flow more smoothly, and the students are going to be able to understand it more easily. And so the first thing is to create an outline. And so maybe before you start, have an outline, maybe of your lesson, of how you're going to proceed through that screencast. It's important that you record in a quiet environment. And so be very vigilant and aware of background noise. Like I said, silence your cell phone, make sure the door's closed, different things like that. And then practice it before you go through it to record. Even if it's just flipping through the slides and kind of in your head, making notes of what you want to say where, that's a good idea to do before you go over the screencast. It's helpful if you close out all other apps and tabs when you screencast. It helps your video to be a little bit better quality and helps to not induce any lag. And then grab a glass of water. So when you're talking and when you're creating a screencast, it's very easy to get parched, or maybe if you're nervous. So keep a glass of water handy. Then always test your recording software. So make sure everything's working properly. You don't want to go through a whole lesson or lecture and then find out the audio didn't capture. That would be frustrating. So testing everything before you start. And then only record what you need. If there's a place where you can pause and switch to the next thing, only record what you need, and that includes the area. If you can minimize the area that you're recording and not capture the entire screen, that also creates a video that's a little bit more manageable. Record with the standard dimensions. So 720p is the standard YouTube size, so just utilize your standard dimensions when you're recording. And then before you start your screencast, or as you start your screencast, tell your viewers what you'll cover. And that may be in a brief text introduction, or as you start your screencast, explaining what you'll be doing in your screencast. And then keep it as short as you can. When we're doing things for instruction and education, it's very important that we keep things as short as possible. Our viewers are going to lose interest about 2 or 3 minutes in. So as much as we can condense our information, the better. And then embed your webcam wisely. Make sure that you've done that properly so that it is functioning properly. And then speak slowly. When we get nervous, when we're presenting things, it's very easy to go quickly. And so practice slowing down and focusing and not rushing through your information. Next is, don't worry if you make a mistake. Just like I've done in this presentation to you, yeah, I made a couple mistakes, but I'm not going to start and stop over. That happens in the classroom too, where you mispronounce a word or something, you can't quite get it out. That happens, and so don't stress out if you make a small mistake. And then make sure to use a good microphone. Oftentimes the microphone in our laptops is fine, but make sure it's working properly and it sounds good. It has good audio. If you need to add an external microphone, if yours isn't working well, then you need to do that to provide the best audio for your students as possible. And then you can zoom in. Zoom in if that's a better angle for you. And don't be afraid to zoom in on the material and utilize that tool. You can use annotation tools. And so if you're getting a screencast and you need to annotate something, or you're using a virtual whiteboard, annotate and then limit your mouse movement. And so as you're screencasting, I'm just going to give you an example. You don't want to be having your mouse go all over the screen because that's going to be captured on your screencast. And then if you're using, for example, Screencast-O-Matic, then you can use your keyboard shortcuts. And so depending on the device that you have, I'm going to guide you to look those up because not everybody has the same device, but utilize those keyboard shortcuts so that you're not moving that mouse so much. And then if you are capturing your screen and you need to scroll on the screen, make sure you scroll very smoothly and not too quickly. You can go back and edit your video and cut out any dead moments. So going back and edit it, that's going to shorten the time that students have to watch, and it just makes your video a better quality. And then don't be afraid to pause. There may be moments where you have to pause for just a minute, whether to gather your thoughts, or to move to something else. You don't always have to fill that white space with noise, and so don't be afraid to pause. That's okay. And then end with a summary. When you get done with your screencast, make sure that you provide a very brief summary of what you've done. That's a good recap, just like you do in the classroom. When you end a lesson and you're getting ready to dismiss your students, you're going to do a quick recap on what you learned that day. And then again, with editing, go back and trim your video where you can. If there's parts that need edited out, you can go ahead and trim that down. And then give your viewers more resources. And so tell them different things that they can go out. Like I mentioned, Socrative. I didn't have an example for that, but that's a resource for you. So you can go out and check that out for yourself, and then let them know where they can find additional information. All right, so now I'm going to quickly show you some video lecture tools. And so the first one is Zoom. Obviously, we've all used that. The second two are VidGrid and VoiceThread. And so I'm going to go through each one of those with you. So VidGrid is an interactive video platform with a mission to empower entire organizations to harness the power of video communication. So VidGrid is the tool that I'm using right now. Fort Hays State University has purchased this for us, and so it does cost. VidGrid, if you actually want to purchase it, is $50 a month. But you simply record, you can edit it, you can share. So just like those things we mentioned before, you can choose to use the webcam or not. You can do webcam only, but you have the ability to share. You can trim the video so you can make edits. And then you can also embed questions in your VidGrid. So if you want to test the students' learning as they're watching your video, maybe if it's asynchronous, you can actually embed questions in your VidGrid, so before they proceed to the next slide, they actually have to answer a question. So that's a great tool that VidGrid has. So it really does provide that responsive, stimulating video for students and allows them to engage, interact. And then again, we can have those call to action where we actually have the student participate in something during the video. We're able to scale the video, so we can manage the video. We're able to track, so it does have analytics attached to it, which is nice. You can see views, you can see how many times the students watched it, and it's protected. So again, the cost is $50 a month for VidGrid. The next is VoiceThread. This is another tool that is integrated with our Blackboard, but you can also sign up for VoiceThread. And so some of the things that VoiceThread can do, it can operate on any computer or web browser. There's a VoiceThread app for the iPad, iPhone, and iPod Touch. You can integrate it with your specific LMS system. You can invite others to participate and collaborate. So if anybody, anywhere, at any time. VoiceThread also has analytics. You can make a custom home page. There are workshops available, and it is secure. VoiceThread's a great tool because it actually allows the students, this is one that I have created previously, and so I would actually be live here. The students could see me on each slide, and then they can actually press this plus button, and they have the opportunity to leave a voice comment, leave a text comment, or a video comment. So this is another way that you can put up a slide and have the students collaborate on it. So now I'm going to give you 10 tips for creating effective instructional videos. And so these are similar to the screencast, but these are if you're creating a video instruction. So one, if you'll notice, I don't have a headset on. Don't use a headset. It makes it a lot more personal if you don't have that headset on. Keep it short. Short is best. Prepare well, and then just go for it. Position the camera above your eyes so you look slightly up at it. So again, that position. And then location is important. Keep in mind of, again, your background, and then don't be afraid to move out. So move away from your different spot. Go outside is another option. Viewers, that mixes it up a little bit and makes it not so monotonous. Look at your camera lens, not at your screen. So it's helpful sometimes to actually cover your screen with something so you're not looking at it. And smile. Don't forget to smile. And then limit the animations and transitions. When you're creating a video instruction, that instructional video. So I want to end with some of the things that our faculty here at Fort Hays are doing. So these are examples of course adaptations from the spring of 2020 that the applied technology staff did. And so first, Randy made a couple adaptations in his machine tool operations class. And so obviously the students couldn't run the CNC machines. And so he found a student version or a free version of Mastercam. And so the students downloaded that, and then they were able to set up their own cutting files. The disadvantage is that they couldn't save. Now, one option that Randy could incorporate this is he could have the students maybe screenshot their files. Since they were unable to save them as a PDF or a digital file, he could have them screenshot those, and maybe that would be an option for them. And then in Technology and Society, he recorded his lectures, and then he made those lectures available at the normal class time. For power and energy, again, recorded lectures. He actually recorded labs in the lab and then shared those with the students. So he would actually do the lab and then share those with the students to the watch. And then he found a trade school that was actually had the same engines that we have here on campus. And so that trade school took the engines apart, and so what he did is share those with the students. They were to watch them, and then they did reflections. And so maybe Flipgrid would be a good option for him here. And then in maintenance and repair, he actually had the students write a paper on preventative maintenance in industry and education. So maybe he could look at another tool to use for that. Joe teaches our robotics class, and he had got done with the smaller robots and was just getting ready to transition to the larger systems when the shutdown happened in March. And so he found a student version of the simulation software, which you see here. The biggest challenge with this, which we have to keep in mind with technology, is there were huge download challenges because all of the students had a different device. And so that was a big challenge. And it was limited scope, so they could only do so much, but it was an option. It was something at least the students could get some hands-on experience a little bit. And then he incorporated targeted discussion boards and then also had them research online. So those are some things that Joe did with robotics. And then with fluid systems, obviously they couldn't do any labs off campus, and so he had the students complete workbooks online, and then they did discussion board assignments to the textbook. So again, maybe utilizing that Flipgrid or some more options. And then in operations management, the lab projects were analytics and operations, and this class was actually done by April, so there wasn't a whole lot of online components in operations management. Dwayne taught Woods processes, and he really front-loaded the course at the beginning of the semester, so when the shutdown happened, there wasn't really a lot. His transition was really pretty easy. And then in construction materials and testing, it's more of a theory course anyway, and so they really, when the shutdown happened, switched more to using PowerPoints, discussion, and then he gave tests on Blackboard. Nathan teaches our STEM class in plastics, and so in STEM, he gave VidGrid demonstrations on software, and so the students still created designs and went through the design process. They just were not able to actually print, so they couldn't use the machines. So that was the downside for that. He did, however, in plastics, they couldn't use the equipment, obviously, because they weren't on campus to use the lab. And so he mailed his students a Kydex sheet and challenged them to make vacuum forming machines to form their own mold. And so I've given you a sample here of his Kydex project. And so he got really creative with this and actually mailed out packets to each student so that they could create their own project. And so really getting that hands-on experience and thinking outside the box for this. And then Eric teaches our AutoCAD. And this was really great because the students could actually log into AutoCAD on campus, and then they could print their drawings to campus, and they also have the option to save digitally. And so I think for this would be a great option to create the individual Padlet boards and have each student have a board with their drawings on it, and that would make a great digital portfolio. So they're not having that face-to-face instruction, but just like you see here, Eric would draw for the students, so the students could watch what he was doing, follow the instructional steps, and then they would duplicate that process at home. And so obviously there's not the in-person help with that assignment, but the students were able to have some experience with CAD. So with that, thank you for watching. I hope that you took away some of the some things that you could incorporate into your CTE courses. And this is my email address if you do have questions. And thank you for watching.